We be live. Hi, everyone. Make sure you like the stream. Okay, so today I'm studying a lot, investigating how AI is hacking the code of life. And the more I study it, the more I think I should need to come. I need to come here and share it with you guys, and how fascinating all of this and what this means for the future of humanity and every single one of us. Because guys, let me know how my audio is, and also make sure you like the stream. I see Amir is here. I see Flying Robot Duck is here. I see Three of Knowledge and Mohsen are here. Thank you guys for being in the live chat. Um, so if we guys manage to hack the code of life, which it seemed for a very long time that this is too complicated to do, and I'll show you how AI is achieving that. And with AI, now we can play God with nature. And I'm talking, and I will convince you guys by the end of the stream that I'm talking beyond just curing disease and curing death. I'm talking about doing things that even today would be considered miracles. I'm talking about being able to have anything in nature that we could imagine. I'm talking about a technology that could mold nature and biology in its by whatever it wills it to be, whatever it wants it to do. It can do that. We will be able to do that with the help of our AI gods. We will be able to bend nature in a way that we never even imagined that we could do. I'm talking things that would look exactly like magic. Whatever animal, whatever body, whatever abilities that is doesn't violate the laws of physics. If you could imagine a living being could have, if you can imagine it, then we can have it. Anything, absolutely anything. I think that a lot of you don't understand how flexible biology is. Before I show how AI will be able to help us do, I mean, we're already doing a lot of interesting things, but it hasn't even started. But I'm just going to show you what we're doing today, and we have been actually doing this for a while. And the direction we're heading is absolutely incredible. Uh, whatever any problem that we as humans are having is problems within our body, whether it's health wise or mental. It's basically what we're talking about is the wrong chemistry. It's a chemistry that we're not happy with, and biology is just a complicated version of chemistry. And if you could hack exactly how nature manages this chemistry, then we could do with it whatever we want. We could feel whatever we want, we could be whatever we want, we could do whatever we want, we could live in whatever bodies that we want, in whatever bodies that we want. We could basically create senses that never even existed. We could create feelings that never existed. We will live like gods. Our AI guys will be able to help us live like gods. Again, let me tell, because a lot of you, I will show you what I'm talking about, but let me tell you why I am so excited, because a lot of people don't understand how flexible biology is. Let me tell you what I mean by that. In throughout evolution, whatever traits a living being needed to survive, just with the simple codes that we have, which is the sequences of, the codes within DNA or the amino acids that fold in a way that creates the proteins that do certain things in nature uh, to carry out certain reactions or not, or stop them or carrying them out. Basically, whatever that code is, whatever that simple code that turns very complicated very fast is, that has been able to give you whatever. If you needed horns, you get horns. If you needed certain types of wings, you get that wing. If you need IQ, if you need intelligence, you get intelligence. If you need self-awareness, you get self-awareness. Given, but the only limitation was that it needed to be something always that is the best trait for your survival. But once you hack that code, then we don't have to have that limitation. Now we could have whatever traits that we want, not traits that necessarily will it serves the gene. Now we could actually go for traits that serves the meme. That's a very key concept here. We don't have to go for traits that serves the gene. We could go for traits that serves the meme. But let me today, I mean, when it comes to hacking this code, there's a lot to talk about. Today, I want to talk about AlphaFold because I think it's a good starter on what AI is making us able to do. By the way, I want to thank Amir here for being sitting right next to me behind the scenes and also helping me understand what's happening in the live chat so I could be interacting with you guys, right? But let me actually show you maybe a scary picture, but then like a scary picture as it might be too complicated to understand. But then I will simplify this in a way you don't have to be an expert, you don't have to be had good grades in biology to understand this. So before I show you this, let me promise you that I'm going to make this easy to understand. Okay, like I'm going to dumb this down for all of us here who are not scientists. Okay, so this is what we're going to be talking about today. And again, if anybody hasn't followed this or doesn't know what you're talking about, I just want to show you the process of what's happening here with AI. um is very interesting and there's a lot of details. But again, here, as you can see, we're starting with an input sequence, and the final result is this thing on the left, on the no, on the right. So on the left, you can see this input sequence. You see that line there at the bottom left. Again, I know there's a lot going on here. I'm gonna simplify this. Promise. I promise. Okay. You see at the left, you see this input sequence, which is basically a code, a line, as simple as a line. And then all of a sudden, on the right, you see this complicated. The very very right at the bottom, you see this very complicated structure. That's a protein. So that's it. On the very left, we have this thing called an amino chain. On the right, we have this thing called protein. So AI, this is something that happens naturally in nature. There are sequences of amino acids. So think about amino acids like letters, and protein like as like a book, right? So you have A, B, C, D's. You have a alphabet that is 20 letters. There's 20 amino acids there that you could basically create complicated structures that are basically proteins. And the protein is the book. So the amino acids are the letters. The sequences of amino acids, putting them next to each other, is like a sentence. And the book at the protein, which is so proteins are made out of amino acids put next to each other in the same way that a book is basically letters put next to each other. A, you know, that's a book. A protein is also an amino acids basically put next to each other. So it's not just putting them next to each other in a line. You're putting them next to each other, and then because of the traits, that the characteristics of the properties of each one of these amino acids next to each other, they fold in a certain way, and they turn into this 3D structure. Okay, I promise I will bring the AI into this very soon. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so you can see this is the primary structure of an amino acid on the very left. You can see it's just a line. So this is the amino acid sequence. You can see these are every single circle there is a amino acid, right? So every one of these circles is a certain amino acid here. And this is an amino acid sequence. And because of the properties of these amino acids, they fold in a certain way. And then we have here the secondary structure, right? And this secondary structure will fold in a different way because of the properties of that in a tertiary structure, and that all of a sudden that eventually turns into a quaternary structure. And this is like a protein, like a hemoglobin, for example. This is what the protein is, a very complicated thing. This is important to understand. I mean, let me know in the chat if everybody just understood what happened, right? Like, so these are the letters, and this is the book. This thing on the left here is the letters, and the protein is the book. And why this book is important, this protein is important. Does that make sense, guys? Everybody is on the same page, because I wanted to go to tell you what AI is doing. This is what nature does. So far we haven't added AI here. But the important thing is that because proteins are basically everything in nature, they do all the work. They do all the work. Basically, any chemistry. What is biology? Biology is just a very complicated version of chemistry. It's a very complicated chemistry, and every chemical reaction that is happening in biology, these proteins are responsible for it. Basically, they make those reactions happen. So they are like the workers of nature. Everything that happens is because a protein made it happen. So basically, if you could control proteins, you control nature. So and again, for people who don't know the relationship between this and DNAs, the amino acid sequence that you are getting here comes from your DNA. So your DNA is the original code that the amino acid gets translated to an amino acid sequence, and this is why your DNA is determines all your traits, because the DNA code has the code that gets translated into an amino acid sequence. The amino acid sequence gets basically turned into a protein, and protein is basically the foundations of how life operates. And that's how DNA controls life. DNA determines what every living being, what their properties are, is because DNA controls amino acid sequence, and amino acid sequence is protein, and protein controls everything. Does that make sense? Everything is understandable. Everything is clear. We get it now, right? So this means that if as humans, we have been trying to figure out what sequence of amino acids gets to this thing over here. Because if we could decode that, we have decoded life, and we can control life. We will become gods of nature. Okay, we will, because we will be able to manipulate life in any way possible, and I'm not exaggerating, any way possible. If you want, forget about removing disease and removing death, which is obviously something we would be doing first. I'm talking about playing with nature like it's Lego. You think of something that you want in nature. You want, again, let me go with the most extreme, so that you guys could call me crazy now and come back to me in a couple of decades and be like, okay, wait a minute, Armin was not crazy. I'm talking about coming up with a seed that you throw somewhere, and as long as it gets water and energy, you will grow a building out of it, or a city out of it. A little bit of information that you throw somewhere, and it will just grow into an entire civilization if you need it. Like, forget about humans who might want, I don't know, horns or wings, or be able super strength ability, the lack of need of sleeping. Imagine how much more productive we will be if we just change our DNA, or in a way that gets. So this is just the beginning. Controlling this part to get what we want here. Eventually, we will be able to decode everything, so that we know what DNA will lead to what amino acid sequence that will lead to what protein, and we will be able to control that as well. And imagine basically us getting 8 hours of our day back by not needing to sleep. Imagine being able to have a much higher intelligence that we have right now, because obviously nature can do that. I know our nature can do that, because the DNA sequence, the DNA code that we had already since the age of bacteria is the same, basically. It's the same technology, it's the same structure that the humans are using to have this level of intelligence was already there even before humans existed, even at the time that the whole world was bacteria. So given that that was already a potential within the DNA to create the chain of amino acids, to create the proteins that makes humans that are this intelligent, of course we are going to be able to decode this and create intelligence that is much, much higher for us humans, that is beyond whatever any human has ever experienced. So, and again, I think a lot of people are expecting only to see the silicon world come and enhance the carbon-based world of nature. But I'm also excited about the other way around. I think that at some point, the silicon world, which is AI, our silicon gods, will realize that actually carbon is more flexible, and nature had a good reason to rely on carbon-based life, and technology is going to enter into a carbon-based coding as well, not just a silicon-based coding. And there's the lines behind what is artificial and what is natural is going to be so great that they're going to be so intertwined with each other that you're not going to be able to set them apart. But forget about what's going to happen in the future. Let's now focus on today and what we have already done today. I'm going to show you this is not all just fantasy. This is all real. Okay. Oh, so Aroko in the chat is saying, by that, are we cooked, Army? Why are we cooked? I'm telling you that we will be living like gods. We will be living in whatever body or whatever nature, whatever you think that is, I mean, it's beyond even human imagination. Just think about us being able to completely change the platform, the framework in which our consciousness operates in whatever way we want. How are we cooked? We are the opposite of cooked. Oh, I was just playing the game. Oh no, yeah, okay. Okay, Gene is saying, hold on. Whoopsie. Let me see. Gene is saying, I'm actually really hoping for this. I have a rare genetic condition that is unlikely to be researched unless the research is done by AI. Okay, Gene, because of what you just said, I am going to actually at some point very soon dedicate a show to how AI is already fixing some very rare genetic diseases already. Like, I'm not talking about the future. What I'm talking about right now. In fact, let's talk about right now, because I'm going to talk about AlphaFold and what has what does it do today. And because a lot of people think all of this, what I'm talking about, is fantasy, because they don't know how far we have already come, and how the people who are already in this industry, how they themselves are suggesting that this is only the beginning of something much more massive to come. Again, I don't know the timeline, okay, but I know it's coming. I just don't know when. Sooner, I think sooner than a lot of people anticipate, but again, I don't know exactly when. Okay, so let's just clarify. This is my description of how this whole nature works, but let's actually go. I'm going to read my notes because maybe the notes makes it easier. You decide. You let me know in the comment sections later whether you like my own personal way of describing this, or sometimes I look at my note and I read something and you tell me if this was a better description of everything I just said. Let me just read this. Let me know which one is better. Proteins are like long strings made up of smaller building blocks called amino acids. Okay, so the analogy used here is basically building blocks that make buildings. I prefer looking at amino acids like letters that you make a book with, right? So, oh, here's another analogy. Imagine beads on a necklace. Your body has 20 kinds of these beads. So, yeah, imagine an alphabet that has 20 letters in it, right? That's what the amino acid were. So if you thinking of DNA is an alphabet that has 4 letters in it. Like the letters in the alphabet for the code is 4, right? But for amino acids is 20. So imagine, for example, I just came up with a great example. So imagine humans use like different alphabets in different countries, usually something between 20 to 30 or 20 30ish letters in each of these alphabets, but they also use computer code which has 2, right? So it's zeros and one. So they use the zeros and ones to store this information, but at some point, if they want to read that information, humans cannot read that zeros and ones. The zeros and ones turns into the alphabet that humans can read, right? So basically, in nature is the same thing. You have a first level alphabet, which is the DNA, which has 4 codes, just like we start with something that is binary, zeros and one, and then it translates into something that uses 20 different letters. 30 or something different letters. In nature, we start with something that is 4, and then it translates to something that has 20 letters. So the world of DNA or nucleic acids, that's 4, but amino acids are 20. So imagine that you have beads on a necklace. Each one of these beads is basically an amino acids. Your body has 20 kinds of these beads. They can be arranged in any order. This order is called an amino acid sequence. Okay, so that's step 1. Step 2, the string folds into a 3D shape, and the shape depends on the characteristics of each one of these amino acids, right? That string doesn't stay straight when in your body. Actually anywhere. If you try to stretch it out and turn it into strings, if you let it go, it will basically fold itself back into that 3D structure. It folds up into a very specific 3D shape, like origami. This final shape is what gives the protein its function. If it folds wrong, it doesn't work, or worse, it causes disease. Think of protein like a key. The shape is what lets it fit into the lock. So a virus, a hormone receptor, a piece of DNA. Okay, so yeah, you get it, right? So the protein, the shape of the 3D shape of the protein is a huge important factor in how it operates inside your body and what does it do. And why is protein folding so important? Because the shape of the protein determines what it does in your body. So for example, here are a few examples. Enzymes, you guys have heard of enzymes. In Persian we call them enzymes, so that's why. Enzymes, they are like the catalyst of every chemical reaction in your body, right? So enzymes shape determine what chemical it can break down. A virus uses proteins to enter your cells, so understanding the shapes help you block it, or actually use it, because viruses are not all that bad. Viruses are the carriers of uh, DNA or RNA. So you could basically, viruses are a technology that carries DNA material for you. So we used to hearing them in a negative way, but they're also very useful if you need to carry a certain block of DNA from one area to another, right? So misfolded proteins are behind diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and other diseases in your body, so like cystic fibrosis and other stuff, right? So knowing the 3D shape helps us design new drugs, understand diseases, build synthetic proteins with new functions, and this is incredible. Let me tell you what that means. So every protein that we see in nature has taken so many years, okay, millions of years of natural selection and evolution to be able for nature to come up with, okay, we need this brick specifically over here, or this key over here to do this thing and make this for us, right? And so every time we saw a protein in nature, it was basically nature's way of coming up with the amino acid sequence that gets you a protein that does a certain function. When you see protein in nature, that's what the protein is done. It's after millions of years of evolution that came. So proteins are a function of evolution, right? And that's how evolution, that's how nature, that's how living beings work. However, for the first time in ever, since ever, okay, we are seeing now proteins that we humans have created to do certain functions that are not a product of evolution. I don't know if I could explain how mind blowing that is. That with the help of AI, we now are building proteins that, like, hey, we want this to happen. So, hey, AI, what amino acids should I put next to each other so that it folds in a certain way that creates a protein that has never existed in nature before, that does this function? And we have, yeah, Amir is saying crazy in the chat. We have created proteins that does a certain function that has nature has never produced, including proteins that glow. So nature has created proteins that glow, because sometimes glowing is a requirement in nature, right? But we humans have now created proteins that does a glowing function, with new proteins that does that, new proteins that does that in a completely new way. Do you understand how insane that is? Do you understand? This is basically evolution on steroids. Things that take millions of years to figure out, we will be able to do it in the virtual world, as if basically evolution is happening in the virtual world, like on our computers, on a much more faster scale than that is possible in the physical world, and actually in the biological world. So imagine if nature had this place where it could basically test everything. Because before AI, when the way we had to do this, we had to test so many things in the lab. But now we don't have to test them in the lab. We have this virtual world where we just things get tested, because this is, you could model all of this and get the AI to basically do trial and error to get the characteristics that you want, endlessly, like millions of times every second, until it gets you to the protein that you want, right? Oh, by the way, please like the stream, guys, because we're gonna have a lot of fun discussing these things on this channel, and about the things, about we're gonna be looking at all the things that we get to do today, and all the things that are gonna come in the future on this channel, in a very exciting way, and also in a very easy to understand way. And this is gonna be a lot of fun. On this channel, we're gonna have a lot of fun looking at all of this, and the possibilities and the keys that we are going to have to open doors that we never thought we'll be able to open in our lifetime, right? This is very exciting. So if you like to be excited about these things, subscribe to this channel, also like this stream, right? Oh, somebody's calling me cute in the chat. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Dr. Hypnosis is saying, what is the what is the protein sequence that gets me a Latina girlfriend? I don't know, but how about this? I know there's a protein sequence that would make you feel more pleasure than you ever imagined. That is not even all the pleasures that you could even imagine from having a Latino girlfriend. Imagine that times 1,000, and you will be able to create feelings that never even existed. That we will be able to create feelings that the human mind cannot even comprehend right now. So how about that? I could do you one. I could do you one better. Okay, right. So let's continue. So how did the scientists study protein shapes before AlphaFold? Oh wait, actually, before that, before we go to, let's actually talk about why is predicting protein folding hard. Let me actually go through this, because this will clarify a lot of things. Imagine trying to guess what a crumbled piece of paper would look like just by knowing the length and texture of the paper, right? So imagine if you look at the or imagine, let me actually give you another example. Imagine if I had uh like a in my hand, I had a whole bunch of sand, okay? And I just threw it all in the air. And I wanted you to, or if I had a machine that would throw it in the air, and I wanted you to go use all the scientific knowledge that you have and go look at this machine and how much force it's going to use to throw the sand in the air, and also look at the position on every single sand particle in the bowl that is in the machine. And I also want you to investigate the air, the the pressure, everything that you can see. So when I press this button, I want you to come eventually with the prediction of where every single individual sand particle will be in this room, because you have all the science, right? We have all the scientific information. We have Newtonian physics. You should technically be able to measure that, and you should be able to come up with eventually the answer for where every single sand particle will be in this room once I press this button and it throws it. Yeah. So you can see that even though we have the physics of and the chemistry and the knowledge, there are certain things that are just too much to calculate, right? And it's almost impossible to come up with an answer for. So that is basically, I mean, that is basically my way of explaining to you. Just because you know all the properties of every single amino acid, it's very difficult for you to understand once they are put in a sequence, what structure they're going to have, and what characteristics that structure is going to have, and what it's going to be able to do. I mean, the only way to do that, honestly, is basically to create it and then in a lab, and then see what happens, and then document that, right? But you can imagine how slow that is if you have to create every single one of these and then just look at what happens. So even though the amino acid sequence gives all the information, there are trillions of ways to fold. That's called the Levinthal. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. It's Levinthal paradox. A protein could take longer than the age of the universe to try all shapes. Oh my God, a protein could take longer than the age of the universe to try all shapes. But in nature, it folds in seconds. This means there's a hidden pattern we didn't fully understand before. So, how did scientists study protein shapes before AlphaFold? They used lab experiments like X-ray, crystallography, cryo-electron microscopy, and NMR spectroscopy. Okay, I tried my best. These are slow, expensive, and sometimes don't work, especially for unstable or flexible proteins. So enter AlphaFold. So first we had AlphaFold in 2020. So this is like 5 years old, but there's a new version that I'm going to talk to you guys about soon as well. But let's look at what we had, what we have now, right? So AlphaFold is a deep learning AI system created by DeepMind. DeepMind, by the way, guys, is owned by Google. Okay, so DeepMind created AlphaFold, and DeepMind is owned by Google. So this is basically owned by Google. It predicts a protein's 3D shape from its amino acid sequence. So this is something so complicated, and I know that by listening to a lot of scientists talking about this, they didn't think that we would get this far this soon, right? And so in 2020, at an international competition called CASP, AlphaFold stunned everyone by predicting protein shapes as accurately as lab experiments. So how does it work? But by the way, that was in 2020. We have moved so much farther than that now, right? So in AI world, 5 years is like decades in scientific advancements before. So how does AI AlphaFold work? Imagine giving AlphaFold a list of amino acids. Here's what happens. Step one, it find related sequence. AlphaFold looks for other similar protein sequences called a multi-sequence alignment, or MSA. This shows how different organisms have evolved similar proteins and reveals which amino acids co-evolve, usually because they're close together in 3D spaces. So basically, you know how ChatGPT uh, was given all of our writings of all the writings of humans, and it basically put them to realize how letters needs to be put together to create books or writings or essays that we want. This is basically what AlphaFold did as well. AlphaFold, like, we had a lot of things in nature where you're like, hey, look, this amino acid gave us this amino acid gave us this amino acid gave us this. Okay, look at all of this, figure out the, basically hack the code of nature. Can you do that? And they were like, yeah, sure, no problem. I'm made for this. Yeah, basically giving a lot of, you give the letters, these are the initial bricks, this is the result, here's the data of what nature has done so far. Can you figure out exactly how this works? And it figured it out. And now, based on all the information, so everything in nature basically was the training material this AI had to figure out what sequences leads to what. And now it could create new, just like ChatGPT can now create new books, new essays. This AlphaFold is like, yeah, I can now create new proteins, right? Or just tell me what you need. Tell me what you need. I'll make it. I'll tell you how to put the amino acids next to each other to get that protein. Do you guys like that analogy? Because that's not in my notes. That I just came up with that right now. It's basically the same way they train ChatGPT, except that's a language model, and apparently AlphaFold is a diffusion model. It's more like Midjourney, right? So we'll get into that. Okay, so it learns from patterns. It uses a type of AI called a transformer, right? Basically, that part is like ChatGPT as well. So it uses something called transformer. This whole transformer thing, we need to talk about it at some point, because we have to understand what is this new type of AI means. What is, because we keep hearing it. ChatGPT is also built based on this technology, transformer. So we need to learn this at some point, right? So it uses something called transformer, and AI called transformer, to learn how sequences relate to each other, which parts of the proteins are likely to touch. So you're like, okay, if you give me this line of these amino acids next to each other, I think it's going to fold here, and this amino acid is going to get closer to that one. and this is going to have an angle over here, and then it's going to fold like this, and then this whole primary structure is going to, entirety of this sequence is going to collapse on this part, and it's going to fold on here, and that one is going to fold like this, and it's going to be like, the whole thing is going to be origami like this, right? And it's going to basically try to predict that based on all the other things it has seen in nature, right? So it learns from the patterns, and it will tell you which parts of them is going to touch and what the final shape is going to be. It builds a 2D map, like it guesses what parts of the string will get closer together in space, and then from that 2D map, it creates a 3D model. Then it uses a special model called invariant point attention (IPA) to build the actual 3D structure, and then that's step 3. So step 1 was finds the related sequence. Step 2 is learns from patterns. Step 3 is builds the 3D model. Step 4, it refines the model. Basically, this step 4 means that it feeds its own prediction back to itself a few times, like checking its own homework, and improves its step by step. So basically, this is the part that the book is finally finished, but now it's rereading it to make sure it got everything right. It's basically doing the final edits. It keeps feeding it back. It goes back from the book. It feeds it back to itself and goes through it to make sure everything is done right. So once it does that multiple times, the result is a pretty decent. Okay, so and now we have. So this was in 2020. We had that, but in 2024 we had this thing called AlphaFold 3, which was a huge leap forward. A huge leap forward. But instead of just proteins, it can now predict the structures of DNA protein complexes, RNA interactions, small molecules like drug bound, how they bound to proteins, ions, post translational modification, cofactors. Basically, we hacked it, guys. We did it. Like, we hacked life. Do you understand? Once you figure out how different drugs will react to proteins in your body, many years, decades of drug testing in labs could be done on computer processors within minutes. Decades worth of testing. So if you understand, okay, so this chemistry of this drug, this is how it will interact with these biological processes in our body. I could test that on these GPUs. I could test that in the virtual world, and I could just keep it running and test everything. We could test everything. Basically, we don't even have to come and like, hey, test this now, test this one. We could basically get to a point where we tell the AI, how about you just test everything? How about you just come up with every single chemical that you could just randomly come about, and just test the effects of it on our biology, on this protein, on that reaction. Test just basically any pairs of our biology with a certain chemical. Just evaluate the effect, all of the effects. We will basically at that point be able to come up with drugs that we would have not thought of for a million years if the entire human race, every single one of us, got a PhD. All the PhDs required to make drugs. Like, let's say, for example, every human had 20 PhDs in areas that were required to make drugs to cure our diseases. The entire humanity basically was dedicated to that. And we all got together, all of us, to try to come up with drugs that will help us out and have the desired effect. And we did that for a million years. That would not be able to get us what this will probably have at some point get us, because of the limitations of the human brain. Because it's not about rationally thinking about things and figuring it out. Okay, rationally, I think this will, because rationality fails you here. This is empiricism. This is about just testing everything. You don't need to think about it. You could just pair everything and just figure out what happens once you have that world. Do you understand the consequences of these, guys? Do you understand what this means? We're entering into an age of miracles. I mean, technically, we have already entered into an age of miracles but it just gets so we just get so used to it that all of a sudden it doesn't feel like miracles anymore. But I don't know if we're going to continue to getting used to it, because right now we're already living a life of miracle. Like the healthcare industry does things already that only 200 years ago we would only think sorcerers or prophets could do, right? But because we have been living with it for a while, we got used to it. But we're going to get into an area of such rapid change that before we get used to what we have and seeing it as normal and not a miracle anymore, before we get to the point where we get used to it, the next thing is going to come. And we're not going to have time to get used to the new advancements that we already have. Yeah, exactly. Amir saying it's exponentially achieving things we couldn't yesterday. Or yeah, exactly. Toby is saying hope they make all the drug delivery system as vape, because pills and syrups and injections suck. Well, I don't know. I don't know the delivery mechanism, but I'm sure it's going to be okay. But by the way, remember, guys, I told you that these are somewhat similar to the similarity with ChatGPT is that they're using transformer technology, which we have to explain at some point exactly what this means. Because, guys, and the way I explain these things on this channel makes it so easy to understand and also a lot more exciting, right? So, I should basically talk about the underlying technology behind all of this AI at some point, from the beginning to the end, so that we understand, how the code works, how the hardware works, how they're connected. We have to talk about this, right? But let me actually tell you what the difference between the AlphaFold and ChatGPT is, right? So it's obviously it's not a language model, it's not an LLM, right? It's a diffusion model. So think more like Midjourney or Dolly, like the image generators, right? So the tech behind AI art generators, and to generate the entire structure in one step. So if you look at LLMs like ChatGPT, they basically go like in a line, like they start in a line, just like if you're writing an essay, you start at a point and you keep writing it, and then you go, and then you basically finish the essay, right? But if you look at Midjourney or Dolly, it generates the entire structure in one step, basically considering all the parts at the same time. That's the main difference between diffusion models and these LLMs. Those are linear, but diffusions are basically creating the whole thing all together. And AlphaFold is more like that because it needs to consider the entirety of it together, not separately, not each part separately. This makes it far more accurate in predicting how drugs, for example, can bind, or how different biomolecules interact with each other. And so, why is this all a big deal? Let's actually go through some examples. This can and already has. In future streams, I will show you some of the effects of the things that we're talking about, but it can help cure diseases. So, for example, find how viruses like COVID-19 work and block them exactly in a much more efficient way. So it's not just vaccines; it's basically block them even after, even among people who might not even be vaccinated, right? So accelerate is even an understatement. Okay, so by the way, guys, do you know what comes after acceleration? So I think it's called jerking, which is a weird name. So you have speed, you have acceleration, and then if you have the rate of acceleration, so when speed increases, that's acceleration. When acceleration increases, that's called jerking. Is that right? Because that's a that's that's not a very YouTube friendly way of describing what's happening, right? But let's just stay with acceleration, right? So acceleration of drug discovery, predict which chemicals fits which protein, and then we have understanding genetic diseases, so gene. Yeah, yeah, no. I see the jokes in the chat. I'm not gonna highlight that. Uh, yeah, so Gene in the chat, which has also a genetic disorder, we are going to be able to understand it. Right now, we're doing gene therapy. There are some simple genes that we figured out if we just change this code in our body, certain genetic diseases will be fixed. And almost every month, they come up with the news that they've solved another one of them, right? I just heard one last week that was figured a genetic disease that was fixed last week. Everyone was shocked. But those are the simple ones. At some point, we're going to be able to understand even the complicated ones and figure out exactly what DNA sequence you're having that is leading into the amino acid sequence that is causing your disorder, and we will be able to basically reverse engineer all of this. Like, okay, so if this is the problem with the amino acid, then what amino acid do we need for you not to have this problem, and what DNA sequence would lead to this amino acid sequence? And then, okay, let's go look at your DNA, and then go snip snip, and then cut the part of the DNA that we don't like, and then put the sequence that we like, and then voila, fixed. We will change the essence of who you are. We would change your foundational code and upgrade you. We have basically hacked your code and fixed your DNA. That's what's happening, right? Oh, thank you, Kenny. Oh, Kenny saying, Armin, is there a way I can support your personal channel financially? Well, Kenny, this channel hasn't been monetized yet. Our Persian, my Persian personal channel has been monetized, so you could support us financially on there. The link to it is in the homepage. But this channel, you could help me by liking this channel, and recommending it, so that I get to a point where I could monetize this one as well. On the Persian side, I get a lot more traffic there, and that's why it's so easy to get to monetization. But this channel has changed direction, so that's why we need to go back to remonetizing it. But again, like the stream, guys, so that we could get monetized the channel earlier. I appreciate that, Kenny. Thank you. Kenny says I already liked it. Oh, Kenny, that's very sweet. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so here's a real world example. Oh, before, like, so genetic diseases, another example is engineer new proteins, design enzymes to break plastic or detect toxins. So we could actually create enzymes that goes and eats plastic and or eats toxins or detects toxins. So a lot of people, when they think about technology, they don't understand that biology is already a technology, and it's a very advanced technology. And a lot of the things that we want to do in future when it comes to technology is going to look a lot more like nature, because you know how you see images of the future and we see like a lot of metal, right? Have you seen that? Like our fantasy about what the future is going to look like is there's a lot of metal, there's a lot of robots, there's a lot of white tall buildings. I actually don't think that's our future. I think if you look 1,000 years from now, you're actually going to see less metal. You're going to see more nature like structures, but just more in a way that we want. Like, I don't think that if you go, 500 years from now, you're going to see people living in tall, white metal buildings surrounded by metal robots. I think our technology is going to look so much like nature that you're going to see, if you see it 500 years from now, you're going to think like, what the hell happened? Did we go backwards? What did the humans just go back into the middle of the forest and in the caves and are living by lakes? Or like, yeah, because we like the way that looks, and we don't have to create structures that is not pleasing to the eye. It's just that we have bodies that, if we live in nature, can tolerate nature, because we're bending nature in our will, and we're bending our bodies into a way that nature is tolerable and actually very pleasant. So it's going to be a return to nature instead of moving away from nature. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if you right now, if you go on Google Images and you search for, I don't know, future cities, you're going to see giant buildings, flying spaceships, and robots walking around. And no, I don't think that's going to be what it looks like. You're actually going to see people just living in hut-like buildings in the middle of, I don't know, a lake in the middle of a forest. And the technology is just going to be seamlessly mixing with the nature around them. That's what I envision, because nature is a form of technology, and the carbon based world is a much more advanced way of manipulating nature than the silicon based world is. It's a lot more. A lot more nano. Okay, like you can get so small and so much more delicate. And I think that we're going to realize that nature had it right, and our technology, so, and again, this is the beginning of it. So if right now we're engineering, uh so if you think like, oh, we have too much plastic in the world, and it's basically making the whole world a lot polluted, is there a chemical that we could get to eat all this plastic and also dissolve it and get something not harmful out of it instead? Yeah, well, it's going to, whatever that is probably going to look more like an enzyme, like something that we have in nature, right? A lot of the nanotech that we're going to create that delivers DNA material from one place to another is going to look like a virus. A lot of the detections of toxins, or a lot of things that we want to happen in our bodies or to happen in our environment, the technology, we're going to more and more realize that, yeah, nature itself had the most advanced practical way of solving this. Now we're just going to do it in a way that is bends to our will, not into with the goal of making us happy, rather than the goal of just survival and spreading our genes, right? Or spreading our DNA material, because that's a metaphorical goal of evolution, is to just the survival of the gene or the survival of our DNA material. But we have other goals in mind. We want to be happy. So when we are basically creating technology, so we started with fire and the wheel to try to bend nature in the direction that we want, and now we're getting bigger, and we're also getting tinier. Okay, we're getting nano, we're getting so small, and in that world the carbon based technology makes the most sense. So let me actually give you a real world example. In the past, finding a new protein structure could take years. Now AlphaFold can make it in minutes. Think about it. We went from years to minutes. Things that took years to minutes. This is not just progress. This is like a giant leap forward. We didn't go from years to months. We didn't go from processes that took years to days. We went from things that took years to the same thing taking minutes with AI. I don't think people can wrap their head around the progress that we're right now in the middle of. Like, we're not talking about predicting the future. I'm talking about we're living it. We're right in the middle of it. We have already published structures for over 200 million proteins. What the hell? Now AlphaFold can do it in minutes, and they've published structures for over 200 million proteins covering almost every organism we know. Wow. This is insane. That's crazy. So again, and we have still a lot to, this is just a beginning, because there's a lot of things AlphaFold cannot yet do. So for example, it predicts static shapes, but they don't not but it doesn't predict how proteins move or fold over time. So basically, the understanding of proteins, protein is not like is something that has a shape and then it just stays like that. Proteins could change their structure based on as time goes on, and that is AlphaFold. AlphaFold is not yet good at that, right? And that's important. It still struggles with very large complexes, like multiple proteins together. It doesn't give energy or stability information, so you can't use it to measure how strong or stable a protein is. It may be wrong in flexible or disordered regions, but it tells you which parts are low confidence. Like it tells you which parts are low confidence. So imagine we're like all of this has happened, and we're still it still hasn't it has managed to produce all of these results without yet being able to do these things. And again, the problems that they're having, the solution to it is just better AI. Like we're in a world right now that the solution to a lot of our problems is just better AI. Like we don't need this doesn't require better labs. This doesn't require better, smarter scientists. This all the limitations that we're having for us to go to have to another for another giant leap forward is just better AI. So what's next? The future will combine AlphaFold with physics. So we're gonna have molecular simulations. Then it's going to combine it with generative AI, designing new proteins from scratch, drug design pipelines, faster clinical discovery, high and high much faster results from lab experiments to be able to test the predictions. So we're heading towards a world where AI designs custom proteins and drugs in days, not years. So you know how the way I look at it is when I follow the news, it used to be that once every year we heard about, oh my god, this new drug, this new way of solving this disease just came out and it's so promising, right? I remember as a kid hearing this once every year or once every 6 months. And then it got to a point where we heard that once every month. Like I remember last year or so, we're getting to a point where every month we're hearing like, oh, we just discovered this new way of treating this disease. Right now, I'm kidding you not, I'm following these things and I'm hearing this almost every week. Almost every week. That every week they're telling me on the news that they found a new way to treat this disease in a way that is revolutionary. And I think we're quickly going to head to a point where this is going to be daily. And if we get to a point where this is daily, then we're quickly going to get to a point where there's no more diseases to cure. And we're going to go from an era that, hey, how do we cure diseases, to an era where how do we actually go beyond curing diseases to a world where say like how do I get we will define diseases in a new way, right? So we're going to have so many upgrades that whatever our biological inconveniences are at the point is going to be defined as a disease, right? So, right, for example, let me give you an example. Um, we had death and disease. Why did we not characterize death as a disease? Because we didn't think death is fixable. But now that we understand death is curable, we categorize aging. Let's say aging. Actually, say it like this: disease, aging, and disease. They are not the same. We didn't see this as one as belonging to the category of another because aging is something that we didn't consider to be fixable. But now that we understand that actually aging can be stopped and even reversed, so aging should be categorized as a disease that can be cured. Aging and death are now categorized as diseases that can be cured because they can apparently we can do something about it. But imagine if we remove diseases and then we remove aging and then we remove death, will we have no diseases anymore? We will have diseases, but we will redefine diseases because the things that we will call diseases at that point are things that we will consider the healthiest versions of ourselves today, right? So imagine if you could have triple the IQ that you have today at some point. If you have the IQ of today, that would be a mental disorder, right? So your IQ right now is not considered a mental disorder. But in a world where everybody has much higher IQs, in that world, your IQ right now would be a mental disorder, right? So being able to, I don't know, lift 500 pounds might be not being able to lift 500 pounds is not considered a disorder today, but maybe at some point it will be considered a disease. Right. Okay. So yeah. Anyways, let me know, because okay, so this is just AlphaFold, because AI is actually helping us decode life in so many different ways. I just found AlphaFold one of the most interesting ones, because it fascinates me that we're creating proteins that evolution never even came up with. So I just wanted to start with this. But I love biology, and I love AI, and I'm a tech optimist. So when AI meets biology, I get very excited when these two worlds collide. And there's a lot to talk about here. So AlphaFold is just one of these things. There's a lot of other things that we could talk about. But if you like the mix of AI and biology coming together and you find that interesting, let me know if you want me to make, because when it comes to this channel, there's a lot of things we're talking about. We're talking about how technology is changing politics. We're going to talk about how AI is going to change the economy, the labor force, our personal lives, our psychology, our culture, the way that we look at each other, love, family, the way to survive, the way to become economically, um, have economic agency, and make sure that we have maintained control of our lives in this fast changing world. We're going to be talking about that. But another part that we could talk about is the mix of biology with the AI world. And let me know if you want me to do more of that. And in fact, the best way to tell me that you want me to do a little bit more of AI and biology combined is by one, liking the stream, and also when the stream is over, leave a comment under the show, in the comment section, to let me know that you appreciate this and you think that this is good. Let me see some of the comments that Amir has started before I go get ready for the Persian show, because I'm going to be doing this exact topic again on the Persian channel. Let me see, Doctor. Did I read this? Not serving the gene, but serving the meme. Dr. Hypnosis just quoting, not serving the gene, but serving the meme. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because the meme is us. We are the memes. Basically, it's our way of life. We want to serve our way of life, not these selfish genes that just want to get the gene. What does the gene metaphorically wants? It just wants to have more of it. It just wants to survive. But what is the meme? The meme is basically serving humanity, and basically it's our way of life. It's how we do things, and serves us. It serves what pleases us and what makes us happy. So we try to the direction of our evolution is moving from serving the gene, to serving the meme. However, the problem we have to be worried about is that if we don't get alignment right, there's going to be another thing on top of this. So in the same way that genes created this living being that is self-aware in a way that now it has its own secondary evolution that is built upon the biological evolution that was founded upon. Now the secondary evolution is creating another form of learning conscious being, which is AI. And in the same way that we betrayed our genes because we changed the direction of the goal into serving a different purpose, this tertiary AI that is being built upon the evolution of the meme could have its own evolution in a direction that might not align. So genes have this alignment problem. So the goals of the gene does not align with the goals of us. So the evolutions of the meme is not aligned with the evolution of the gene. It has a different purpose, metaphorically purpose. And this could happen. What the way we betrayed the gene, AI could also betray us in the same way by not being aligned with us, which is a topic of another uh, discussion that we could have on this channel. Okay, so oh wow, thank you. Inner Self Rising is saying, I'm loving this content. Can you please make a video on your thoughts on AI and the environment? Some people are making the argument that AI is bad for the environment. Would love to know your point of view. That's actually a very good topic. I will keep that in mind. I think the best way to save the environment is to get AI to do it for us. So the faster we get AI, more powerful AI, the faster we're going to realize, come up with ways to save the environment. I mean, just look at what we talked about today. With AlphaFold, you're eventually going to be able to create enzymes that goes and eats the plastic, and they just munch on the plastic and just gives us usable. So instead of giving us pollution, it gives us actually usable side products, right? Oh, Nima is here. Nima is saying, thank you guys. Please like and comment. Yes, Nima, thank you for reminding me to tell people to like and comment, right? So almost done here. We're going to get ready for the Persian show after this. Gene is saying, is this open? Does this open the door to treating chronic pain with a non-addictive modified opiate? Of course. I mean, again, if you can imagine, let me repeat this. If you could imagine it, and if it doesn't violate the laws of physics and math, then we will have it. I mean, you're saying, can we treat chronic pain? We will go so much beyond treating chronic pain. We will be able to create new feelings that nature didn't even provide for us, that cannot even be described because they need to be felt. We will be able to experience pleasure. So forget about just eliminating pain, boredom, anxiety, depression, because every single feeling that you have is a chemical reaction. So just Gene, think about it like this. Every single joy or sadness or despair, all your feelings are just chemical reactions. So if we can control that chemistry, if we figure out, if we could decode life, all that chemistry will be under our control. And not only it would be under our control, we will be able to create new chemistry that life didn't even have. So if you think about your feelings or your pain or your pleasure as chemical reactions, and realize that once we decode life, all of those chemical reactions will be in our control, then you will get your answer. And then let me see. Jewish Samantha is saying, could AI generate something that could absorb the effects of a nuclear bomb, so that a nuclear bomb can go off without anyone getting hurt? Okay, so now we're getting to the violating the laws of physics, right? I mean, depends on how what you mean by getting hurt, like because if we are uploaded to the cloud and we have, anyways, I'm not going to get into that. But no, I mean, if you're saying like, would we be able to have this much energy, a massive amount of energy, not impacting, not causing any form of destructions on a set of chemical reactions? Again, that now you're basically talking about violating the laws of physics. I say anything that you could imagine, unless it doesn't violate the laws of math and physics. So whatever you thought is the laws of chemistry, it's not a law. It can violate that. Whatever you thought is the laws of biology, it's not a law. You can violate the so-called laws of biology. Okay, all of that could be violated. All of that could be changed. It's at the so if you look at the world, if the base layer is math, and the layer on top of that is physics, and then the layer on top of that is chemistry, and then the layer on top of that is biology, and then the layer on top of that is all the human sciences. Because what is human sciences? Human sciences, like economy, politics, psychology, is just a form of biology, because you're studying the biology of humans, right? And what is biology? Biology is just a very complicated organic form of chemistry. Okay, and then what is chemistry? Chemistry is just the physics of molecules and atoms. And then what is physics? Physics is just math applied to matter and time. So basically, everything is just math, right? And then these two last levels, math and physics, those laws, we will not be able to violate those laws. But anything on top of that is changeable. So I'm saying, so in short, no, AI will not make you superheroes. You all, it will make us superheroes, but superheroes that are defined in a way that doesn't violate the laws of physics, because we will be able to do things that humans before us would see and would consider us to be divine beings. So technically, we will be able. I mean, we're already living like superheroes. I mean, guys, I am talking. You are all over different parts of the world, and I'm talking to you, and you're listening to me live. Okay, that is already a superpower. Would be considered a superpower only 200 years ago, right? So we're just talking about this trend continuing but accelerating. All right, guys, I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna go get ready for the Persian show. Please make sure you like the stream. We're trying to grow this channel, and we're going to have a lot more content like this, but not just on biology. We're going to talk about many things that are already happening, many things that are going to happen, and more importantly, what to do about it, how to stay relevant, how to maintain control over your life in this fast changing world, how to create connections with other people, and how to become economically relevant, emotionally stable, and also how to help each other, figure out how to help ourselves and then help each other to make sure that we don't get crushed by this fast changing the world and actually use it in our advantage. Oh, Sid is saying thank you for the info. Well, you're welcome. I'm okay saying great stream. Well, I appreciate that, guys. Yeah, guys, leave comments like that telling me, that motivates me. After the stream is over, in the comment section, let me know if you like the stream, because that really motivates me to continue. Okay, guys, and I'm gonna head out. I appreciate you guys. Until next stream, bye.